What do you do when you lose everything in a single day? Sarah Mitchell stood frozen on the sagging porch of her Chicago bungalow, staring at the foreclosure notice taped to her front door. The bold red letters, "Final Warning," seared into her vision like a brand, each word a fresh cut to her already battered heart. The paper crinkled as she tore it down, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. The morning sun, harsh and unforgiving, sliced through the humid August haze, glinting off the cracked windows of her small, weather-beaten home. Inside, her 10-year-old son, Ethan, was still asleep, his soft snores a fleeting reminder of the innocence she was fighting to protect. But the world was closing in, and Sarah felt like she was drowning. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, the third notification in an hour. She didn't need to check it to know it was bad news. At 6:47 a.m., she'd opened an email from her boss at the graphic design firm where she'd worked for 7 years. Due to budget cuts, your position has been terminated, effective immediately. The words had hit like a punch, leaving her gasping on the couch. Then, at 8:12 a.m., Ethan's school had called, leaving a voicemail she hadn't yet dared to play. "Mrs. Mitchell, we need to discuss Ethan's behavior. He's been in another fight." Sarah's chest tightened, her breath coming in shallow bursts. 32 years old, a single mom, and now jobless, on the brink of homelessness, and failing her son. How had it come to this? She sank onto the porch steps, the wood creaking under her weight. The neighborhood was quiet, save for the distant hum of a lawnmower and the occasional bark of a dog. Her street, lined with modest bungalows and faded American flags, felt like a snapshot of a life she tried to build but couldn't hold on to. Her ex-husband, Jake, had walked out 4 years ago, leaving her with a toddler, a mortgage, and a heart full of promises he'd never kept. Her mom, who'd raised her alone in rural Michigan, had passed away 2 years ago, and her sister, Emily, was a stranger now, chasing her own dreams in California. Even her best friend, Mia, a nurse working double shifts at Northwestern Memorial, could only offer so much. Sarah was alone, and the weight of it was crushing. She pulled out her phone, desperate for a distraction, anything to keep her from spiraling. Her thumb scrolled through X, past memes and political rants, until a post stopped her cold. It was one of those viral threads, the kind she usually skipped, but the headline grabbed her: "Elon Musk's 1-hour rule changed my life." The poster, someone called Tech Tom, claimed that dedicating 1 hour a day to learning something new, coding, physics, anything, had turned his life around. Musk swears by it, the post read. 1 hour, every day, no excuses. It's how you build a future. Sarah snorted, the sound bitter in her throat. Easy for a billionaire like Elon Musk to say. What could an hour do for someone like her, scraping by in a city that didn't care? But the idea lingered, like a song she couldn't unhear. 1 hour. 60 minutes. She could find that, couldn't she? Between Ethan's tantrums, the job hunt, and the looming threat of eviction, she could carve out 1 hour to try something, anything, to pull herself out of this hole. Coding, maybe. She'd always been curious about it, back when she was a teenager sketching in her Michigan bedroom, dreaming of being an artist. But life had other plans: college dropout, early marriage, single motherhood. Coding felt like a young person's game, a world of tech bros and Silicon Valley dreams far removed from her reality. Still, she bookmarked the post, her thumb hovering over the screen. What did she have to lose? "Hey, hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from," she imagined saying, a flicker of her old creative spark igniting. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? She shook her head, embarrassed. Who was she kidding? She wasn't some YouTuber with a story to tell. She was just Sarah, the mom who couldn't keep it together, sitting on a porch that might not be hers in 30 days. Inside, the house smelled of burnt toast and Ethan's forgotten cereal bowl, a reminder of the rushed mornings they'd shared all summer. She tiptoed past his room, where he lay sprawled across his bed, one sneaker dangling off his foot. His face, soft and sleep, was a ghost of the toddler who used to cling to her leg, giggling as she drew cartoon animals for him. Now, at 10, he was all sharp edges, angry outbursts, sullen silences, a boy grappling with a world that kept letting him down. Sarah's chest ached. She'd promised him stability, a better life than she'd had growing up in a trailer park in Michigan, where her mom worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. But here she was, repeating the same cycle, failing him just as life had failed her. She sank onto the couch, her ancient laptop balanced on her knees. The foreclosure notice lay crumpled on the coffee table, next to a stack of unpaid bills and a half-empty coffee mug. She opened the X post again, following a link TechTom had shared to a free coding tutorial site called Codecademy. The screen glowed with bright, cheerful prompts: learn Python in 1 hour. Sarah rolled her eyes but clicked anyway. The first lesson was simple: type print, hello, world, and hit run. Her fingers, stiff from years of mouse clicking through Photoshop, fumbled on the keys. When the code ran, those 2 words appeared on the screen, hello, world, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah felt a rush of something she hadn't felt in years: control. It was a tiny victory, but it was hers. She leaned back, letting the feeling wash over her, until her phone rang, shattering the moment. The caller ID read Lincoln Elementary. Her stomach dropped. She hit play on the voicemail, and Mrs. Carter's voice, clipped and professional, filled the room. Sarah, Ethan punched another kid at recess. We're sending him home. You need to come get him now. The phone slipped from her hand, landing on the couch with a soft thud. 1 hour. She couldn't even get 1 minute without life pulling her back under. Driving to the school, Chicago's skyline loomed in the distance, all glass and steel, a world that felt a million miles away from her crumbling life. The radio played a pop song Ethan loved, but it only made her throat tighten. She pulled into the school parking lot, her beat-up Honda rattling as she parked. Inside, Ethan sat in the principal's office, his hoodie pulled low over his eyes, arms crossed. Mrs. Carter, a stern woman with gray streaks in her hair, didn't mince words. This is the 3rd incident this month, Sarah. Ethan won't talk, but the other kids say he started it. Sarah nodded, her throat too tight to speak, and led Ethan to the car. He stared out the window as they drove past strip malls and faded billboards, the city a blur of concrete and neon. Why, Ethan? She finally asked, her voice breaking. He shrugged, his jaw tight. They called me a loser. Said we're gonna be homeless. The words hit harder than the foreclosure notice, sharper than the layoff email. Sarah gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, fighting the urge to cry. She wanted to tell him they'd be okay, that she'd fix this, but the words felt hollow, like a lie she couldn't sell. Back home, she sent Ethan to his room and collapsed at the kitchen table, the laptop still open. The Codecademy tab blinked at her, hello, world. Still glowing, mocking her. The clock on the wall ticked toward noon, each second a reminder of the 30 days she had left before the bank took her home. She thought of her mom, who'd worked herself to death to give her a chance, and of Ethan, who deserved better than this. 1 hour. Could it really change anything? She didn't know. But as the afternoon sun filtered through the kitchen curtains, casting shadows on the peeling wallpaper, Sarah made a decision. She'd try. 1 hour, every day, no matter what. Because if she didn't, what was left? She opened the laptop again, her fingers hovering over the keys. The foreclosure notice, the layoff, Ethan's fights, they were all still there, pressing down. But for 1 hour, she could fight back. She typed the next line of code, her hands steadier now, and whispered to herself, hello, world. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Sarah Mitchell sat at her kitchen table, the foreclosure notice still crumpled beside her laptop, its red ink a silent accusation. The house was quiet now, Ethan tucked into his room, probably staring at his phone or sketching in the notebook he thought she didn't know about. The clock ticked past noon, each second a reminder of the 30 days she had left before the bank took everything. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, the Code Academy tab still open from last night's fleeting victory. Hello, world, but her mind was elsewhere, dragged back to a past that felt both distant and painfully close. If she was going to fight for a future, she needed to understand why she was still carrying the weight of yesterday. Growing up in rural Michigan, Sarah had learned early that life didn't hand out second chances. Her childhood home was a double-wide trailer on the edge of a soybean field, the kind of place where the wind howled through thin walls and the smell of damp earth clung to everything. Her mom, Diane, was a force of nature, 5'2", with calloused hands and a laugh that could light up a room. She worked mornings at a diner, pouring coffee for truckers, and nights at a canning factory, her fingers stained with tomato juice. "We don't quit, Sarah," she'd say, her voice firm as she braided Sarah's hair before school. "No matter how hard it gets, you keep going." Sarah had believed her, back when she was a kid sketching wildflowers in a spiral notebook, dreaming of being an artist in a city far from the fields. But dreams were fragile in a place like that. By high school, Sarah's art was her escape, her sketches of imagined worlds, cities of glass, forests alive with color, winning praise from her teachers. They urged her to apply to art school, but Diane's tired smile told her the truth, there was no money for that. So Sarah worked weekends at the diner, saving what she could, until she met Jake at 19. He was a charmer, a mechanic with big talk about moving to Chicago, building a life together. She fell hard, mistaking his promises for love, and by 21, she was married, pregnant, and enrolled in a community college graphic design program, her art dreams scaled down to something practical. Ethan's arrival changed everything. Holding him in the hospital, his tiny fingers curled around hers, Sarah felt a love so fierce it scared her. But Jake wasn't built for fatherhood. He grew distant, his late nights at the garage turning into weeks of absence, until he left for good when Ethan was 3. Sarah dropped out of college, took a job at a small design firm, and moved them into the Chicago bungalow, a fixer-upper she'd hoped to make a home. She'd wanted to give Ethan the stability she'd never had, but now, staring at the foreclosure notice, she felt like she'd betrayed that promise. Her phone buzzed, pulling her back to the present. It was a text from Mia, her best friend since their early days in Chicago. "You okay? Heard about the job. I'm here." Sarah's throat tightened. Mia was a nurse, always juggling double shifts at Northwestern Memorial, her life a whirlwind of scrubs and coffee runs. They'd met at a playground when Ethan was 4, bonding over spilled sippy cups and single-mom exhaustion. Mia was the one who'd shown up with pizza after Jake left, who'd watched Ethan when Sarah worked late. But even Mia couldn't fix this mess. Sarah typed back, "Hanging in there. Thanks." She couldn't bring herself to say more. Her thoughts drifted to her sister, Emily, the one person she hadn't spoken to in years. Emily was 2 years younger, the dreamer who'd fled Michigan for California right after high school, chasing a tech job and a life Sarah couldn't understand. They'd been close once, sharing secrets under the trailer's leaky roof, but Emily's departure had felt like a betrayal. "You're leaving me here?" Sarah had shouted during their last fight, the words raw with hurt. Emily had called a few times since, but Sarah's pride kept her from answering. Now, with her world collapsing, she wondered if Emily even knew how bad things had gotten. Sarah's gaze fell on a framed photo on the mantel, one of the few she hadn't packed away. It was her and Ethan at Lake Michigan last summer, his grin wide as he held a seashell, her arm around him, both of them laughing. The memory hit hard, the sun warm on their skin, the waves crashing, the rare moment when life felt whole. Ethan had been quieter then, before the fights at school started, before the weight of their struggles settled into his small shoulders. She'd do anything to see him smile like that again. The laptop screen flickered, drawing her back. Code Academy's cheerful interface felt out of place in her dim kitchen, with its peeling wallpaper and chipped mugs. She thought of the X post about Elon Musk's 1-hour rule, TechTom's words echoing, 1 hour, every day, no excuses. Could it really be that simple? Her mom's voice crept in, unbidden, we don't quit, Sarah. Diane had never stopped, even when the factory cut her hours, even when the diner tips weren't enough. She'd kept going, for Sarah and Emily, until cancer took her 2 years ago. Sarah's eyes stung. She'd promised herself she'd be stronger than her mom had to be, but here she was, on the verge of losing everything. She clicked to the next coding lesson, a simple exercise about variables. Her fingers hesitated, the cursor blinking like a challenge. X equals 10. She typed it, her hands clumsy, and ran the code. It worked, a small green checkmark appearing on the screen. A laugh escaped her, sharp and unexpected. It wasn't much, but it was something, a tiny step forward in a life that felt stuck. For the first time that day, she felt a flicker of hope, fragile but real, like a match struck in the dark. Then she heard it, a crash from Ethan's room, followed by a muffled curse. Her heart sank, the hope snuffed out as quickly as it had come. She rushed down the hall, pushing open his door to find him standing over a broken lamp, his face flushed with anger. Ethan, what happened? She asked, her voice sharper than she meant. He glared at the floor, his hands balled into fists. It was an accident, he muttered, but his eyes told a different story, fear, frustration, the same emotions churning inside her. Talk to me, she pleaded, kneeling beside him. He pulled away, his voice barely a whisper. You're always busy. You don't care. The words cut deeper than anything else that day. Sarah wanted to argue, to tell him how much she cared, how every choice she made was for him. But she saw the truth in his eyes, he felt as alone as she did. She reached for his hand, but he yanked it back, retreating to his bed. Just leave me alone, he said, turning to the wall. Sarah stood there, helpless, the broken lamp a mirror of her fractured life. Back in the kitchen, she sank into her chair, the laptop still open. The green checkmark mocked her now, a reminder of how small her progress was compared to the chaos around her. The foreclosure, the layoff, Ethan's pain. It all loomed larger than any coding lesson could fix. But her mom's voice echoed again, we don't quit. Sarah closed her eyes, picturing Diane's tired smile, the way she'd hug her after a long shift, smelling of coffee and grease. Diane had fought for her, and Sarah would fight for Ethan, even if it meant starting with 1 hour a day. She typed the next line of code, her fingers steadier now. The clock ticked on, the house creaking around her, but for that moment, Sarah felt a spark of defiance. She wasn't just fighting for a house or a job, she was fighting for the life she wanted for her son, for the woman she still wanted to become. 1 hour. It was all she had, but it was enough to keep going. Sarah Mitchell sat at her kitchen table, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across the peeling wallpaper. It was 10:47 p.m., the house quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old Chicago bungalow settling into the night. Ethan was in his room, hopefully asleep, though she'd heard him tossing earlier, his anger from the day's fight at school still simmering. The foreclosure notice and unpaid bills sat stacked on the counter, silent reminders of the chaos threatening to swallow her life. But for now, for 1 hour, Sarah was determined to focus. She'd promised herself she'd try Elon Musk's 1-hour rule, 1 hour a day, no excuses, to learn something new. Tonight, that meant coding, a world as foreign to her as the gleaming skyscrapers downtown. The Code Academy website stared back at her, its bright interface almost mocking with its promise, learn Python in 1 hour. Sarah's fingers hovered over the keyboard, her nails chipped from nervous biting. Last night's "Hello, World" had felt like a small victory, a flicker of control in a life spinning out of it. But tonight's lesson was different. Variables, loops, things that sounded like they belonged in a math class she'd barely passed in high school. She clicked into the next exercise, create a variable called name and print it. Simple enough, right? She typed name equals Sarah, then hesitated. The instructions wanted quotes around her name. She tried again, name equals Sarah. She hit run, and an error message flashed red, syntax error, invalid syntax. Her stomach twisted. She'd done something wrong, but what? The screen offered no answers, just a blinking cursor taunting her incompetence. This was stupid. She was 32, a single mom with a failing graphic design career, not some tech prodigy in a hoodie. Coding was for kids who grew up with computers, not women who'd spent their teens sketching wildflowers in a Michigan trailer park. She slammed the laptop shut, the sound sharp in the quiet kitchen. Her mom's voice echoed in her mind, "We don't quit, Sarah," but it felt distant, drowned out by the weight of the day. The foreclosure notice loomed in her peripheral vision, and Ethan's words from earlier stung, "You don't care." She buried her face in her hands, the pressure behind her eyes building. This was her first hour, and already she was failing. Then her phone pinged, a soft chime that cut through the silence. It was a notification from the Code Academy forum, where she'd posted a desperate question about her error before giving up. The reply was from someone called Tech Tom, the same user whose ex-post about Musk's 1-hour rule had sparked this crazy idea. "Hey Sarah, don't sweat the syntax error," the message read. "You forgot the print statement. Try this, print, name. You've got this. I'm Tom, been coding for 30 years. Happy to help." Sarah blinked, rereading the message. 30 years? This guy was probably some retired programmer, sitting in a fancy office somewhere, not a broke mom staring down eviction. But his words were kind, and kindness was in short supply lately. She opened the laptop again, her fingers trembling slightly, and typed print, name. The green checkmark appeared, and her name, Sarah, popped up on the screen. A laugh escaped her, small but real, like a crack of sunlight through storm clouds. For a moment, she felt weightless. It wasn't much, just her name on a screen, but it was proof she could learn, could do something new. She imagined telling Ethan, showing him the code, maybe even seeing that rare smile of his. The thought warmed her, a flicker of hope in the dark. She typed a quick reply to Tech Tom, "Thanks, Tom. Total newbie here, but that worked. What's next?" She hit send, feeling a spark of connection to this stranger, someone who saw her struggle and didn't judge. Maybe this 1-hour rule could work. Maybe she could. Her phone rang, shattering the moment. The caller ID read Lincoln Elementary, and her heart sank. It was too late for a school call, 9:03 p.m. on a Thursday. She answered, her voice tight. "Hello." Mrs. Carter's voice was colder than it had been that morning. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm sorry to call so late, but the school board reviewed Ethan's case. He's been suspended for 3 days starting tomorrow. You'll need to pick up his assignments in the morning." Sarah's mouth went dry. "Suspended? For the fight?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Mrs. Carter's tone softened slightly. "It's not just the fight. It's a pattern. We recommend counseling. I'll send you resources." The call ended, and Sarah stared at the phone, the room spinning. Suspended. 3 days. She pictured Ethan's face in the principal's office, his hoodie pulled low, his voice barely a whisper, "They called me a loser." Her chest ached, guilt and anger tangling together. She should have been there, should have seen the signs, his outbursts, his sketches growing darker, his silences longer. But she'd been so caught up in the foreclosure, the layoff, her own failures. And now this coding thing, this 1 hour she thought could save her, felt like a betrayal of him. She glanced at the laptop, the green checkmark still glowing. What was the point if she couldn't even help her son? She stood, pacing the kitchen, her bare feet cold against the linoleum. Outside, Chicago's streetlights cast a faint glow through the curtains, the city alive while her world crumbled. She thought of Mia, who'd texted earlier, offering support. She thought of her mom, who'd worked herself to death to keep her and Emily afloat. And she thought of Ethan, alone in his room, carrying burdens no 10-year-old should. She wanted to barge in, hug him, promise him everything would be okay, but she knew he'd push her away. Instead, she sat back down, the laptop's light pulling her in. She opened the forum again. Tech Tom had replied, "Next up, try a simple loop. It's like teaching the computer to repeat itself. Check the next lesson, and ping me if you get stuck. You're not a newbie, you're a beginner, and that's the best place to start." Sarah's lips twitched, not quite a smile but close. She clicked to the next lesson, her heart still heavy but her resolve hardening. She'd messed up with Ethan today, but she wouldn't give up on this. 1 hour. It was all she had, and she'd make it count. The clock ticked toward 11 p.m. as she typed her first loop, 4i in range, 5 print, trying. The screen filled with the word trying, 5 times over, and Sarah felt a surge of something, pride, maybe, or defiance. She wasn't just trying for herself anymore. She was trying for Ethan, for the life she'd promised him, for the woman she still wanted to be. The suspension, the foreclosure, the layoff, they were still there, waiting to pull her under. But for this 1 hour, she was fighting back, one line of code at a time. Sarah Mitchell woke to the sound of rain pelting the roof of her Chicago bungalow, a steady drumbeat that matched the pounding in her chest. It was Friday morning, and the foreclosure notice on her kitchen counter seemed to pulse with a life of its own, the red final warning letters glaring in the dim light. 30 days. That's what the bank had given her to vacate the home she'd poured her heart into, the only place Ethan had ever called home. The clock on the wall read 6:32 a.m., and Ethan's 3-day school suspension meant he'd be underfoot all day, his anger a storm cloud she didn't know how to navigate. Sarah rubbed her eyes, exhaustion settling into her bones. Her 1-hour coding sessions, inspired by Elon Musk's 1-hour rule, were her only lifeline, but even those felt like a drop in the bucket against the flood of her problems. She shuffled to the kitchen, the linoleum cold under her bare feet, and started the coffee maker, its gurgle a small comfort in the quiet house. Her laptop sat open on the table, the Codecademy tab still glowing from last night's session. She'd managed to write a simple loop, trying, repeated 5 times on the screen, and Tech Tom's encouraging words had kept her going, "You're not a newbie, you're a beginner." But the victory felt hollow now, overshadowed by Ethan's suspension and the email she'd received yesterday, another job rejection, her 3rd this week. "We're looking for candidates with more current design skills," the message read, polite but brutal. 7 years as a graphic designer, and her portfolio was outdated, her skills stuck in a pre-digital era. She was obsolete, and the world wasn't waiting for her to catch up. A knock at the door jolted her from her thoughts. She opened it to find Mr. Delaney, her landlord, standing under an umbrella, his face as gray as the Chicago sky. "Sarah," he said, his voice clipped but not unkind, "I wanted to check in. The bank's serious about the 30 days. I can't stall them." Sarah's stomach churned, the coffee turning bitter in her throat. "I'm trying, Mr. Delaney," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm looking for work. I just need time." He sighed, his eyes softening. "I know it's tough, but you've got to start packing. I'll help where I can, but the clock's ticking." He handed her a list of local shelters, the paper damp from the rain, and left without another word. Sarah closed the door, leaning against it as the weight of his words sank in. Shelters. The idea made her skin crawl. She'd grown up in a Michigan trailer park, her mom working 2 jobs to keep them off the streets. She'd sworn Ethan would never know that kind of fear, but here she was, staring it down. She glanced at the photo on the mantel, her and Ethan at Lake Michigan, his grin bright against the waves, and felt her resolve crack. How had she let it Comia Constantia come to this? Her phone buzzed, pulling her back. It was Mia, her best friend, texting, dropping by with donuts. "You and Ethan okay?" Sarah managed a weak smile. Mia was a lifeline, always showing up when Sarah needed her most, even with her crazy nurse's schedule. "Hanging in there. Donuts sound amazing. Come by any time," Sarah replied, though the thought of facing Mia's kindness made her feel raw. She didn't want pity, didn't want to admit how close she was to breaking. But Mia was family, the sister Sarah's real sister, Emily, hadn't been in years. Sarah pushed thoughts of Emily away. California was another world, and their last fight still stung. Ethan shuffled into the kitchen, his hoodie pulled low, his eyes avoiding hers. "You're up early," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice light. He grunted, grabbing a cereal box from the pantry. "Don't have school, do I?" The edge in his voice cut deep, a reminder of yesterday's fight and his suspension. She wanted to reach out, to fix the distance growing between them, but he was already halfway out of the room, cereal bowl in hand. "We'll talk later," she called after him, but he didn't respond, the door to his room clicking shut. Sarah's heart sank. She was losing him, and she didn't know how to stop it. She sat at the laptop, desperate for a distraction. The job rejections, the eviction deadline, Ethan's suspension, it was all too much. Coding was supposed to be her way out, her chance to build a future for them, but it felt like chasing a mirage. Still, she opened Code Academy, scrolling to the next lesson, building a basic web page. The instructions were daunting. HTML, CSS, tags she didn't understand, but she followed along, typing H1 a welcome to my page /H1. The screen previewed a bold title, clean and simple, and Sarah's breath caught. It was hers, something she'd made from nothing. She added a line of text, "For Ethan, always." When she hit save, the page loaded perfectly, and a rush of pride surged through her. It wasn't a job or a home, but it was progress, a tangible step forward. She messaged Tech Tom on the forum, "Built my first web page. It's basic, but it works. Thanks for the push." His reply came quickly, "That's huge, Sarah. Keep it up. Try adding some color next, check the CSS section." The encouragement felt like a lifeline, a reminder that she wasn't alone in this. The doorbell rang, and Sarah opened it to find Mia, rain-soaked but grinning, holding a box of donuts from Stan's, the best spot in Chicago. "You look like you need sugar," Mia said, pulling Sarah into a hug. Over coffee and donuts, Sarah spilled everything. The foreclosure, the job rejections, Ethan's suspension. Mia listened, her eyes steady, and offered her spare bedroom. "You and Ethan can stay with me," she said. "No arguments." Sarah's throat tightened, pride warring with desperation. She wanted to say no, to prove she could handle this, but the thought of Ethan in a shelter was unbearable. "I'll think about it," she said, her voice thick. Mia squeezed her hand. "You're not alone, Sarah. We'll figure this out." But as Mia left, the high from the web page faded. Sarah checked her email, hoping for a job response, only to find another rejection, "Your skills don't align with our current needs." The word stung, a fresh reminder of her inadequacy. She glanced at Ethan's closed door, picturing his angry eyes, his whispered "You don't care." The web page, the 1-hour rule, it was something, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. She sat back down, the rain still pounding outside, and opened Code Academy. The clock ticked toward noon, but she'd find her hour, no matter what. For Ethan, for her mom's memory, for herself. She typed the next line of code, her fingers steady, and whispered, "Keep going." Sarah Mitchell sat at her kitchen table, the rain-soaked Chicago morning casting a gray pallor over the room. The clock read 7:14 a.m., and the house was quiet, save for the faint drip of a leak in the corner where the roof had started to give way. Ethan, still suspended from school, was asleep in his room, his door firmly closed, a barrier Sarah didn't know how to breach. The foreclosure notice, now a permanent fixture on the counter, loomed like a countdown clock, 29 days until the bank took their home. Her laptop, her only refuge these days, glowed with the Codecademy tab, where she built her first web page last night. It was a small victory, a flicker of light in the dark, but it wasn't enough to outrun the storm of her life. She needed a miracle, and she needed it fast. Her phone pinged, a notification from the Codecademy forum breaking the silence. It was Tech Tom, the retired programmer who'd been her unexpected cheerleader through her early coding struggles. His message was brief but electrifying. "Sarah, saw your webpage, great start. Found something you might like, a free coding bootcamp in Silicon Valley. 2 weeks, all expenses paid for top applicants. Link below. You should apply." Sarah's breath caught, her fingers frozen over the keyboard. Silicon Valley. The words conjured images of sleek glass buildings, tech geniuses in hoodies, a world where people like Elon Musk turned ideas into empires. It was a universe away from her crumbling Chicago bungalow, but the idea sparked something in her, a dangerous, thrilling hope. She clicked the link, her heart racing. The bootcamp's website was polished, with photos of smiling coders hunched over laptops in a sunlit room, surrounded by whiteboards scribbled with code. "Codeworks Intensive, transform your future in 2 weeks," the headline promised. It was aimed at beginners with potential, offering hands-on training in web development and a chance to pitch projects to tech startups. Sarah's mind spun. 2 weeks in California, learning skills that could change her life. A job, maybe. A way to keep her home, to give Ethan the stability she'd promised. But the logistics hit her like a brick. Ethan, the cost of travel, leaving Chicago. She was a single mom with no savings, no safety net. How could she even consider it? She leaned back, the chair creaking under her weight, and closed her eyes. Her mom's voice echoed, as it always did in her lowest moments, "We don't quit, Sarah." Diane had never seen a place like Silicon Valley, but she'd fought for every scrap of their life in Michigan, working double shifts to keep Sarah and Emily fed. Sarah had sworn she'd do better for Ethan, but here she was, drowning in debt and doubt. The 1-hour rule, her nightly coding sessions inspired by Musk's philosophy, was starting to feel like more than a whim. Building that web page last night, seeing for Ethan, always on the screen, had given her a taste of what she could do. Could this bootcamp be the next step? She opened a new tab and searched Silicon Valley. Images flooded the screen, sprawling campuses with palm trees, coffee shops buzzing with tech talk, the Golden Gate Bridge glowing in the distance. It was a far cry from Chicago's gritty streets, the L trains rattling past her neighborhood, the neon signs of dive bars flickering in the rain. She imagined herself there, laptop open, learning to code in a room full of people who believed in the future. The thought was intoxicating, but it also terrified her. She was a 32-year-old mom with a high school diploma and a kid who needed her. What if she failed? What if she left Ethan and everything fell apart? Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from Mia. "You up? Ethan okay?" Sarah's chest tightened. Mia had offered her spare bedroom yesterday, a lifeline Sarah couldn't bring herself to accept yet. Pride was a stubborn thing, but so was love, and Mia was the closest thing to family she had left. "He's still sleeping." "I'm okay, just thinking," Sarah texted back, then hesitated before adding, "Found a coding bootcamp in California." "Crazy, right?" Mia's reply was instant, "Not crazy. Amazing. Tell me more." Sarah smiled, a flicker of warmth cutting through her doubt. Mia believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. She spent the morning researching the bootcamp, her coffee growing cold. The application was daunting, coding samples, a personal statement, a video interview, but the deadline was in 3 days. She could do it, couldn't she? Her web page was basic, but it was something. She opened Codecademy, determined to add to it during her hour today. She followed Tech Tom's suggestion, tweaking the CSS to add a splash of blue, Ethan's favorite color. When the page reloaded, the text glowed against a soft blue background, and Sarah's heart lifted. It was small, but it was hers, a piece of a dream she hadn't dared to dream in years. Ethan shuffled into the kitchen, his hoodie pulled low, a sketchbook tucked under his arm. "You're always on that thing," he muttered, grabbing a granola bar. Sarah's smile faded. "I'm trying something new," she said, keeping her voice soft. "For us." He shrugged, his eyes on the floor. "Doesn't change anything. We're still losing the house." The word stung, sharp and true. Sarah wanted to argue, to tell him about the boot camp, the possibility of a new start, but his closed-off expression stopped her. He was 10, but he carried the weight of their struggles like a much older soul. "We'll figure it out, Ethan," she said, but her voice lacked conviction, and he walked away without a word. The rejection hit harder than the job emails piling up in her inbox. She checked her email again, hoping for a response to the dozen applications she'd sent out, but found another form letter: "Thank you for your interest, but we've selected another candidate." Her skills, once her pride, were relics in a world that had moved on to newer software, flashier portfolios. She was falling behind, and the bootcamp felt like her last chance to catch up. But leaving Ethan, even for 2 weeks, was unthinkable. Mia's offer echoed in her mind, but accepting it meant admitting she couldn't do this alone. The thought burned, a mix of shame and fear. She messaged Tech Tom, "Applied for the boot camp. Scared out of my mind. What if I'm not good enough?" His reply came quickly: "Nobody's good enough at the start, Sarah. You show up, you learn, you grow. You're already doing it with that web page. Keep going." His words were a lifeline, pulling her back from the edge. She opened her laptop again, diving into the next CSS lesson, her fingers moving with purpose. The rain outside slowed to a drizzle, and the kitchen felt a little less cold. For 1 hour, she could imagine a future where she wasn't just surviving, but building something real. By noon, she'd added a button to her web page, a simple click me that linked to a photo of Lake Michigan, a nod to that day with Ethan. It wasn't much, but it was progress, and progress was hope. She pictured herself in Silicon Valley, learning, growing, maybe even pitching an idea that could change their lives. But as she closed the laptop, Ethan's door remained shut, and the foreclosure notice stared back. The boot camp was a dream, but Chicago was her reality, and she had 29 days to bridge the gap. Sarah Mitchell stepped off the plane at San Francisco International Airport, her stomach a knot of nerves and excitement. The air was crisp, tinged with the salt of the Pacific, a far cry from Chicago's humid haze. Her backpack, stuffed with her laptop and a few changes of clothes, dug into her shoulder as she navigated the bustling terminal. It was Monday morning, and the 2-week Codeworks bootcamp in Silicon Valley awaited, an all-expenses-paid chance to transform her life, a leap she'd never imagined taking a month ago. But leaving Ethan with Mia for 2 weeks weighed heavy, his sullen goodbye at O'Hare echoing in her mind: "Don't forget about me." At 32, with a foreclosure notice haunting her Chicago bungalow and a son struggling with his own demons, Sarah felt like she was walking a tightrope. The 1-hour rule had gotten her this far, 1 hour a day, learning to code, inspired by Elon Musk's philosophy, but now she was in uncharted territory, and the stakes felt higher than ever. The boot camp was in Palo Alto, a short train ride away. Sarah boarded the Caltrain, clutching her phone, where a text from Mia glowed: "Ethan settled in. He's okay. Kick butt at that boot camp." Sarah managed a faint smile, but guilt gnawed at her. Ethan's school suspension, his recent fights, his whispered fears about being homeless, she'd left all that behind for this chance. What kind of mother does that? She pushed the thought down, focusing on the scenery outside. The Bay Area unfolded in a blur of palm trees, sleek office buildings, and billboards for startups she'd never heard of. It was a world of glass and ambition, so different from her Chicago neighborhood with its cracked sidewalks and faded dive bars. She felt like an alien, a single mom with a high school diploma, stepping into a land of tech prodigies. The Codeworks building was a modern marvel, all glass walls and open spaces, with a sign proclaiming Code the Future. Inside, the lobby buzzed with young coders, most in their 20s, dressed in hoodies and sneakers, laptops slung over their shoulders like weapons. Sarah adjusted her worn jacket, her sneakers scuffed from Chicago winters, and felt a wave of self-consciousness. She was older, out of place, a beginner who'd only built a basic web page thanks to Tech Tom's encouragement on the Code Academy forum. The application process, her coding samples, a shaky video interview, had felt like a fluke. What was she doing here? A woman at the check-in desk handed Sarah a name tag and a schedule. "Welcome, Sarah Mitchell," she said with a practiced smile. "Orientation's in 10 minutes. Grab some coffee and mingle." Sarah nodded, her throat tight, and joined the crowd, clutching a paper cup of coffee that burned her fingers. The room hummed with chatter, terms like API, framework, GitHub, flying over her head. She caught snippets of conversations, a guy boasting about his startup, a woman discussing her master's in computer science. Sarah's heart sank. She was a graphic designer with a knack for Photoshop, not a coder. She didn't belong here. Then a voice broke through her spiral. "First time at one of these?" Sarah turned to see a woman about her age, with warm brown eyes and a hijab framing her face. Her name tag read Priya Sharma. "Yeah," Sarah admitted, her voice small. "I'm way out of my depth." Priya laughed, a sound that eased Sarah's nerves. "Same. I'm a high school math teacher, not a tech bro. But I figured, why not try? I'm Priya." Sarah shook her hand, grateful for the kindness. Priya was a first-generation Indian American, she explained, raised in Queens by parents who'd immigrated with nothing. "I'm here for my daughter," Priya said. "She's 7. I want her to see what's possible." Sarah's chest tightened, thinking of Ethan. "I've got a son, 10, she said. Everything I do is for him." Orientation began in a sleek lecture hall, with rows of laptops and whiteboards covered in code. The instructor, a wiry man named Javier, radiated energy, his voice booming as he outlined the bootcamp's goals: build a functional web project, pitch it to startups, learn by doing. "You're not here to be perfect," he said. "You're here to grow." Sarah scribbled notes, her pen shaking. The first day's task was to pair up and build a simple login page. Priya slid into the seat next to her, grinning. "Partners?" Sarah nodded, relief washing over her. Maybe she wasn't alone after all. They worked late into the evening, the classroom a blur of clicking keyboards and murmured debates. Priya was a quick learner, her math background helping her grasp coding logic, but she was patient, guiding Sarah through HTML tags and CSS styles. By 9 p.m., they'd built a login page, basic, but functional, with a clean blue design that reminded Sarah of Ethan's favorite color. "Not bad for day one," Priya said, high-fiving her. Sarah's face flushed with pride, the first real win she'd felt in weeks. She messaged Tech Tom, "Made it to the bootcamp. Built a login page today. Feeling like I might actually do this." His reply was instant, "Knew you could, Sarah. Keep pushing. What's next?" But as the room emptied, Sarah's high faded. She checked her phone, no messages from Ethan, just a photo from Mia of him eating pizza, his face blank. She called him, her heart pounding, but he didn't pick up. Mia answered instead, her voice soft. "He's okay, Sarah, just quiet. He misses you." Sarah's eyes stung. "Tell him I love him," she whispered, hanging up. The Silicon Valley night was cool, the stars hidden by city lights, and Sarah felt the distance between her and Ethan like a physical ache. She was here to build a future for them, but what if she was losing him in the process? Back at the dorm-style housing provided by the boot camp, Sarah lay awake, the hum of Silicon Valley outside her window. The room was sparse, a twin bed, a desk, a view of a tech campus across the street, but it felt like a different world from her Chicago bungalow, with its leaky roof and Ethan's sketches taped to the walls. She opened her laptop, pulling up her web page from Chicago, the one with "For Ethan, Always." She added the login page she'd built with Priya, the blue design glowing on the screen. It was a small step, but it was hers, proof she could keep going. Her mom's voice echoed, "We don't quit, Sarah." She thought of Priya, risking everything for her daughter, and Tech Tom, a stranger cheering her on from afar. She wasn't alone, not entirely. The boot camp was her chance to rewrite her story, to show Ethan what was possible. But as she closed her laptop, Ethan's silence lingered, a reminder that this leap came at a cost. She whispered into the dark, "I'm doing this for you, buddy," and hoped he'd believe her someday. Sarah Mitchell sat in a Codeworks classroom, the hum of Silicon Valley's evening energy seeping through the glass walls. It was day 5 of the 2-week boot camp, and the room buzzed with the clatter of keyboards and the low murmur of coders troubleshooting their projects. Sarah's laptop screen glowed with lines of HTML and CSS, a half-finished web page for a fictional school portal she and Priya were building together. The blue design, inspired by Ethan's favorite color, felt like a small piece of home in this alien world of tech. Her nightly 1-hour rule sessions, inspired by Elon Musk, had led her here, a single mom from Chicago, surrounded by young techies in hoodies, chasing a dream she barely believed in. But every line of code she wrote was for Ethan, a promise to build a better future. Now, as the clock ticked toward 8 p.m., that promise felt like it was slipping away. Her phone vibrated on the desk, Mia's name flashing on the screen. Sarah's heart skipped. She'd been waiting for an update on Ethan, who was staying with Mia while she was at the boot camp. She stepped into the hallway, the fluorescent lights harsh against the darkening sky outside. "Hey, Mia," she answered, her voice tight with anticipation. "Everything okay?" Mia's response was a whisper, laced with panic. "Sarah, it's Ethan. He ran away." The words hit like a punch, stealing Sarah's breath. "What do you mean, ran away?" she stammered, her hand gripping the phone. Mia explained, Ethan had gotten into a fight with another kid at her house, something about being teased for his mom being gone. He'd stormed out, leaving his phone behind, and now Mia and her husband were searching the neighborhood. "The police are looking, too," Mia said. "I'm so sorry, Sarah." Sarah's knees buckled, and she slid down the wall, the cold tile grounding her as the world spun. Ethan, her 10-year-old, out there alone in Chicago's sprawling suburbs, angry and scared. She pictured his face, his hoodie pulled low, his eyes sharp with the pain he wouldn't voice. His words at the airport echoed, "Don't forget about me." She'd left him for this boot camp, for a chance at a future, but what if that choice had cost her everything? The classroom's hum faded, replaced by a roaring in her ears. She had to go home. Now. But the boot camp was only half done, her project incomplete, her chance at a tech job hanging by a thread. Leaving meant giving up, throwing away the 1-hour rules promise. Staying meant abandoning Ethan when he needed her most. The conflict tore at her, a high-stakes decision with no right answer. She stumbled back into the classroom, her face pale. Priya noticed immediately, her warm brown eyes narrowing with concern. "Sarah, what's wrong?" she asked, pulling her to a quiet corner. Sarah's voice broke as she explained. Ethan's runaway attempt, Mia's frantic search, her own guilt for being 2,000 miles away. Priya listened, her hand resting gently on Sarah's arm. "I get it," she said softly. "When I left Queens for this boot camp, my daughter, Aisha, cried for days. I felt like the worst mom alive. But I stayed because I wanted her to see me fight for something better." Priya's story poured out, her parents' journey from India with nothing, her own struggle to balance teaching with single motherhood, the hope that coding could give Aisha a future. "You're here for Ethan," Priya said. "You're showing him what's possible." Don't give up now. Priya's words were a lifeline, a flicker of hope in the darkness. Sarah clung to them, picturing Ethan's grin from their Lake Michigan day, the way he'd held up a seashell like a treasure. Maybe staying was the way to fight for him, to prove they could rise above their struggles. She called Mia back, her hands shaking. "Any news?" she asked. Mia's voice was steadier now. "The police found him. He's safe, back at my place. He's just quiet. Won't talk about it." Relief flooded Sarah, but it was tinged with dread. Ethan was safe, but he was shutting her out, his silence a wall she couldn't climb. "Can I talk to him?" she asked. Mia hesitated. "He's not ready, Sarah. Give him time." The call ended, and Sarah's heart sank. Ethan's refusal to speak was a fresh wound, a reminder of the distance her choice had created. Back at the desk, Priya slid a coffee toward her, the steam curling in the air. "Keep coding," she said gently. "It'll ground you." Sarah nodded, her eyes burning, and opened her laptop. The school portal project stared back, its blue design a small anchor. She typed a new line of code, her fingers clumsy but determined, adding a button labeled Parent Login. It was for Ethan, for the mom she wanted to be. The classroom buzzed around her, coders laughing, Javier pacing with pointers, but Sarah felt alone, the weight of Ethan's silence pressing down. She messaged Tech Tom on the Code Academy forum, "Ethan ran away tonight. He's safe, but he won't talk to me. Don't know if I should stay here." His reply came quickly, "That's heavy, Sarah. You're doing this for him, even if he can't see it yet. Keep building that project. Show him what you're made of." The words echoed Priya's, a chorus of support from strangers who believed in her when she couldn't. She dove back into the code, the classroom's energy a faint hum against her focus. By midnight, she and Priya had a working login page, the button linking to a mock dashboard. It was rough, but it worked, and Sarah felt a spark of pride, fragile but real. Outside, Silicon Valley's night was alive with lights, tech campuses glowing, cars humming along the freeway. Sarah stepped onto the balcony, the cool air a shock after the classroom's warmth. She pictured Chicago, its L trains rattling, Ethan asleep in Mia's spare room. She wanted to call him again, to hear his voice, but Mia's words stopped her, "Give him time." The guilt was a stone in her chest, but Priya's story, Tech Tom's encouragement, and the code she'd written tonight were threads of hope, pulling her forward. She was here to build something, not just for herself but for Ethan, to show him they could survive this. Back in the dorm, she lay awake, the hum of Silicon Valley outside her window. The room's stark walls felt foreign compared to her bungalow's chipped paint and Ethan's sketches. She opened her laptop, pulling up the web page she'd started in Chicago, the one with "For Ethan, Always." She added the new login page, the blue button glowing like a promise. Her mom's voice whispered, "We don't quit, Sarah." She wouldn't quit, not on Ethan, not on herself. But as she closed her eyes, Ethan's silence lingered, a shadow she couldn't shake. 1 hour at a time, she'd keep going, but the cost was higher than she'd ever imagined. Sarah Mitchell sat hunched over her laptop in the CodeWorks classroom, the Silicon Valley night pressing against the glass walls. It was day 10 of the 2-week boot camp, and the room thrummed with the frenetic energy of coders racing toward their final projects. The air smelled of coffee and overheated laptops, the glow of screens casting shadows on tired faces. Sarah's eyes burned from hours of staring at code, but she couldn't stop, not now, not after Ethan's runaway scare 2 days ago. His silence on the phone, his refusal to talk, had left a hollow ache in her chest, but Priya's words echoed, "You're here for him. Show him what's possible." Sarah's 1-hour rule, inspired by Elon Musk's philosophy, had brought her to this moment, 1 hour a day, building skills, building hope. Tonight, that hope was taking shape in a way she hadn't dared imagine. The bootcamp's final project was a functional web app, something to pitch to startups on the last day. Sarah and Priya had been working on an idea sparked by Ethan's struggles, an app to help parents track their kids' school progress, grades, attendance, teacher notes, all in one place. Sarah had named it ConnectSphere, a nod to the connection she was fighting to rebuild with Ethan. The idea had come to her after Mia's call about his runaway attempt, when she'd learned he felt like a burden. If she could create something to help parents like her stay involved, maybe it would ease the guilt that gnawed at her, maybe it would show Ethan she was fighting for him. Priya sat beside her, her hijab slightly askew from hours of work, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Okay, Sarah, let's test the dashboard again," she said, her voice steady despite the late hour. They'd built a prototype, a clean interface with a blue theme, Ethan's color, where parents could log in and see updates in real time. Sarah had written the front-end code, styling buttons and text, while Priya tackled the back-end, linking the app to a mock database. It was rough, with bugs that made the dashboard glitch, but it was theirs. Sarah typed a line of CSS to fix a misaligned button, her heart racing as she hit save. The screen reloaded, and the button snapped into place, glowing against the blue background. It worked. Sarah whispered, a grin breaking through her exhaustion. Priya high-fived her, her laugh cutting through the classroom's hum. "Told you we'd get it. You're a natural, Sarah." The praise warmed Sarah, a rare moment of confidence in a week of doubt. The boot camp had been a whirlwind, long days of lectures, coding challenges, and late-night coffee runs to the 24-hour diner down the street. The other coders, mostly younger, had started to feel like a community, their shared struggles forging bonds over pizza and debug sessions. Javier, the instructor, paced the room, offering pointers, his energy infectious. "You're building the future," he'd shout, and for the first time, Sarah believed it might include her. But Ethan's silence loomed, a shadow over every triumph. Mia had texted updates, Ethan was back at school, sullen but safe, but he still wouldn't talk to Sarah. Each unanswered call was a knife twist, reminding her of the cost of being here. She'd left Chicago to chase a future, but what if Ethan resented her for it? She pushed the thought down, focusing on the app. ConnectSphere was for him, a way to make sure no parent felt as helpless as she did now. She added a feature, a notification system for behavior alerts, inspired by Ethan's school fights. When it worked, sending a mock alert to the dashboard, Sarah's eyes stung with pride. This was more than code, it was a piece of her heart. The classroom was emptying out, coders heading to the dorms, but Sarah and Priya stayed, fueled by coffee and determination. The diner's neon sign glowed across the street, a beacon in the Silicon Valley night. Sarah thought of Chicago, its L trains rattling, the Lake Michigan wind, Ethan's sketches on the fridge. She messaged Tech Tom on the Code Academy forum, built an app for parents. "It's working, mostly. Wish Ethan could see it." His reply was quick, "That's incredible, Sarah. He'll see it someday, and he'll be proud. Keep going." The words were a lifeline, tethering her to the belief that she was doing this for the right reasons. Priya leaned over, pointing at a bug in the notification code. "This loops off," she said, her voice gentle. They debugged together, the classroom quiet now, just the two of them and a few stragglers. Priya shared a story about Aisha, her 7-year-old, who'd drawn a picture of her mom as a computer superhero. "She thinks I'm at Hogwarts," Priya laughed, but her eyes were soft. "I want her to know she can be anything." Sarah nodded, thinking of Ethan's sketchbook, his dark drawings of storms and broken houses. "I want that for Ethan, too," she said, her voice barely audible. Priya squeezed her hand. "You're giving him that, Sarah. This app, it's proof." By 2 a.m., they had a working prototype. The dashboard loaded smoothly, notifications popped up, and the blue design felt like a piece of home. Sarah leaned back, exhaustion mingling with triumph. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, a breakthrough she hadn't thought possible when she'd started coding a month ago. The other coders clapped as they demoed it for Javier, who grinned. "This has heart," he said. You're onto something. Sarah's face flushed, the praise a rare balm for her doubts. But as she walked back to the dorm, the Silicon Valley air cool against her skin, the high faded. She checked her phone, no messages from Ethan, just a text from Mia, he's okay, but he's still quiet. Call tomorrow. Sarah's heart ached. The app was a victory, a testament to the 1-hour rule's power, but it couldn't bridge the gap between her and Ethan. She pictured him in Mia's spare room, his hoodie pulled low, feeling abandoned. The guilt was a weight, heavier than the foreclosure notice, heavier than the job rejections. In her dorm room, the stark walls and hum of the freeway outside felt foreign compared to her Chicago bungalow's chipped paint and Ethan's laughter. She opened her laptop, pulling up ConnectSphere. The blue dashboard glowed, a reminder of what she'd built and why. Her mom's voice whispered, "We don't quit, Sarah." Priya's story, Tech Tom's encouragement, the bootcamp's community, they were all proof she wasn't alone. She was building something, not just for herself but for Ethan, to show him they could rise above their struggles. But as she closed her eyes, Ethan's silence lingered, a bittersweet shadow over her breakthrough. 1 hour at a time, she'd keep going, but the cost was a wound she couldn't ignore. Sarah Mitchell stepped off the plane at O'Hare Airport, the Chicago air heavy with late summer humidity, a stark contrast to Silicon Valley's crisp breeze. Her backpack, stuffed with her laptop and notes from the 2-week Codeworks bootcamp, felt heavier than when she'd left. The ConnectSphere app she'd built with Priya, a tool to help parents track their kids' school progress, was a triumph, a testament to the 1-hour rule inspired by Elon Musk. But the victory was overshadowed by the ache in her chest, the silence from Ethan that had stretched across the miles. His runaway attempt 5 days ago, while she was 2,000 miles away, had left her raw, and his refusal to talk on the phone was a wound that hadn't stopped bleeding. She was home now, but the fear of what she'd find gnawed at her as she hailed a cab to Mia's apartment. The cab wound through Chicago's familiar streets, past the L tracks rattling overhead and the neon glow of corner stores. Sarah stared out the window, her reflection pale against the glass. The bootcamp had changed her, 2 weeks of coding, late-night coffee runs, and Priya's encouragement had shown her she could be more than a struggling graphic designer. But Ethan's absence from her calls, his terse texts via Mia, made her question everything. Had she chased a dream at the cost of her son? Her mom's voice, a constant in her mind, whispered, "We don't quit, Sarah." But what if she'd been fighting the wrong battle? Mia's apartment was in a brick building in Logan Square, its fire escape zigzagging against the dusk sky. Sarah climbed the stairs, her heart pounding, and knocked. Mia opened the door, her nurse's scrubs rumpled, her smile warm but tired. "He's in the spare room," she said, pulling Sarah into a hug. "He's been quiet, but he's okay." Sarah nodded, her throat tight, and stepped inside. The apartment smelled of pizza and laundry detergent, a cozy contrast to the sterile dorms of Silicon Valley. Mia's husband, Carlos, was watching a Cubs game on TV, giving Sarah a nod before turning back to the screen. "Go talk to him," Mia whispered. "He needs you." Ethan's door was cracked open, his sketchbook sprawled on the bed, pages filled with dark, jagged drawings, storms, broken houses, a figure alone under a black sky. Sarah's chest ached. He sat cross-legged on the floor, his hoodie pulled low, earbuds in, staring at his phone. "Ethan," she said softly, kneeling beside him. He flinched, pulling out one earbud, his eyes wary. "You're back," he muttered, not meeting her gaze. The distance between them felt like a chasm, wider than the miles she'd just traveled. "I'm here now," she said, her voice trembling. "Can we talk?" He shrugged, his jaw tight, but he didn't push her away. Sarah took a deep breath, the weight of the past 2 weeks spilling out. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here when you needed me," she said. "The boot camp, it was for us, to build a better life. But I should have checked in more. I should have," her voice broke, tears burning her eyes. Ethan's face softened, just a fraction, but he stayed silent, his fingers twisting the hem of his hoodie. "Why'd you run away, buddy?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "What happened?" The question hung in the air, heavy as the Chicago humidity. Ethan's eyes flicked to the floor, then back to her, and for the first time in days, he spoke. "I heard Mia talking to Carlos," he said, his voice small but sharp. "She said you're losing the house, that we're broke because of me. I thought, if I wasn't here, you wouldn't have to worry so much." The words hit Sarah like a tidal wave, guilt and love crashing together. He'd felt like a burden, her 10-year-old son carrying the weight of their struggles alone. She'd been so focused on coding, on saving their future, that she hadn't seen how much he was hurting. "Oh, Ethan," she said, pulling him into a hug. He stiffened at first, then melted into her, his shoulders shaking. "You are not a burden. You're the reason I keep going. Every line of code, every late night, it's for you, to give us a home, a life." Tears streamed down her face as she held him, the warmth of his small body grounding her. "I messed up, leaving you like that. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Ethan pulled back, his eyes red but searching. "You were doing that computer stuff for us?" he asked. Sarah nodded, wiping her tears. "I built an app, called ConnectSphere. It's to help parents like me stay close to their kids, so you never feel alone again." Ethan's face lit up, just a flicker, but it was the first spark of his old self she'd seen in weeks. "Can I see it?" he asked. Sarah's heart lifted. She grabbed her laptop from her backpack, opening the ConnectSphere prototype. The blue dashboard loaded, notifications and mock grades glowing on the screen. Ethan leaned in, his eyes wide. "You made this?" he asked, a hint of awe in his voice. Sarah nodded, her throat tight. "With help from a friend, Priya. It's not done, but it's a start." Ethan traced the screen with his finger, lingering on the blue button labeled Parent Login. "It's cool," he said softly, and Sarah felt a weight lift, a bridge forming across the chasm. They talked for hours, the room growing dark around them. Ethan admitted he'd been scared, not just of losing the house but of losing her, like he'd lost his dad. Sarah shared her own fears, failing him, failing herself, the foreclosure notice that haunted her dreams. It was raw, messy, the kind of conversation that left them both drained but closer, their bond stronger for it. Mia peeked in, bringing them slices of pizza, her smile soft. "You two okay?" she asked. Sarah nodded, squeezing Ethan's hand. "We're getting there." Later, as Ethan slept, his sketchbook opened to a new drawing, a house under a blue sky, not broken this time. Sarah sat on Mia's couch, her laptop open. She messaged Tech Tom, "Talk to Ethan. He felt like a burden, but we're working through it." Showed him the app. He liked it. Tech Tom's reply was quick, "That's huge, Sarah. You're building more than code, you're building trust. Keep it up." She smiled, the words a reminder of the community she'd found, from Priya to Tech Tom to the bootcamp coders. Her mom's voice echoed, "We don't quit, Sarah." She wouldn't quit, not on Ethan, not on herself. The Chicago night hummed outside, the L trains a familiar rhythm. Sarah opened ConnectSphere, tweaking a button's alignment, the blue glow a promise. The foreclosure loomed, but tonight, she'd rebuilt something more important, her connection with Ethan. 1 hour at a time, she was finding her way back to him, and maybe, just maybe, to a future they could both believe in. Sarah Mitchell sat in a cozy therapy office in Chicago's Logan Square, the late September light filtering through a window adorned with potted plants. The room smelled of lavender and old books, a soft contrast to the city's autumn chill outside. Ethan, slouched in an armchair beside her, fiddled with the strings of his hoodie, his eyes fixed on the floor. Across from them, Dr. Lena Carter, a warm-eyed counselor with a knack for gentle questions, leaned forward. "Ethan, what's one thing you wish your mom knew about how you're feeling?" she asked. Sarah's heart clenched, her hands twisting in her lap. The past 2 weeks, her Silicon Valley boot camp, Ethan's runaway scare, their raw confrontation at Mia's, had brought them closer, but trust was a fragile thing, and they were here to rebuild it, one session at a time. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The foreclosure notice still haunted their Chicago bungalow, now with 21 days left before the bank's deadline. Sarah's ConnectSphere app, built during the boot camp to help parents track kids' school progress, was a beacon of hope, proof that her 1-hour rule, dedicating 1 hour daily to learning, inspired by Elon Musk, could change their lives. But Ethan's pain, his belief that he was a burden, had shaken her to her core. She'd shown him the app, its blue dashboard glowing with promise, and his quiet, "It's cool," had been a start. Therapy was the next step, a commitment to healing the rift her absence had widened. Ethan shifted, his voice barely audible. "I wish she knew I'm scared she'll leave again," he said, his eyes flicking to Sarah, then away. The word stung, but Sarah nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I'm not going anywhere, buddy," she said softly. "I'm here, and I'm listening." Dr. Carter smiled, jotting a note. "That's a great start, Ethan." "Sarah, what do you want Ethan to know?" Sarah took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "I want him to know he's my whole world. Every choice I make, even the hard ones, is to give us a better life. I'm sorry I made you feel alone." Ethan's shoulders relaxed, just a fraction, and Sarah felt a flicker of hope, fragile but real. The session unfolded slowly, Dr. Carter guiding them through their fears. Ethan admitted he'd been angry, not just at Sarah but at the world, his dad's absence, the kids at school who teased him, the threat of losing their home. Sarah shared her own guilt, the weight of failing to shield him from their struggles. It was messy, tear-streaked, but honest, and when Ethan reached for her hand as they left, Sarah felt a piece of their bond click back into place. Outside, Chicago's streets were alive with the crunch of fallen leaves and the hum of the L train. "Can we get hot chocolate?" Ethan asked, a shy smile breaking through. Sarah grinned, her heart lifting. "Stan's Donuts, let's go." Back at their bungalow, the reality of their situation waited, the stack of bills, the foreclosure notice, the leaky roof that dripped into a bucket. But Sarah felt steadier, grounded by Ethan's small smile and the therapy session's promise. She'd moved back from Mia's, determined to make their home feel like theirs for as long as they had it. That evening, as Ethan sketched in his room, his drawings brighter now, with hints of blue skies, she opened her laptop, checking the Codecademy forum. A message from Priya, her bootcamp partner, caught her eye. "Hey, Sarah. A friend startup needs a freelance coder for a small web project. Your ConnectSphere skills would be perfect. Interested?" Sarah's pulse quickened. A job, her first real coding gig. She replied immediately, "Absolutely, send me the details." The gig was straightforward, redesigning a local nonprofit's website, with a focus on user-friendly navigation. The pay wasn't huge, but it was enough to cover a month's utilities and buy some time. Sarah dove in during her nightly hour, the bungalow's quiet broken only by the click of her keyboard and Ethan's soft music from his room. She built a clean homepage, using the CSS skills she'd honed at the bootcamp, and added a donation button that glowed blue, a nod to ConnectSphere. When she sent the draft to the nonprofit, their response was glowing. "This is fantastic. Can you add a blog page?" Sarah's face flushed with pride, a validation of the 1-hour rule's power. She messaged Tech Tom, landed a freelance coding gig. Small, but it's a start. Therapy's helping with Ethan, too. His reply was quick, "That's massive, Sarah. One step at a time, you're building a new life. Proud of you." The words warmed her, a reminder of the community that had carried her through, Tech Tom's forum posts, Priya's partnership, Mia's unwavering support. Her mom's voice echoed, "We don't quit, Sarah. She thought of her Michigan childhood, her mom's tired smile after double shifts, and felt a surge of determination. She wouldn't quit, not for Ethan, not for herself. Ethan wandered into the kitchen, his sketchbook under his arm. "What's got you smiling?" he asked, peering at her laptop. Sarah turned the screen to show him the nonprofit's website, the blue button gleaming. "I got a coding job," she said. "It's not big, but it's mine." Ethan's eyes widened, a spark of his old curiosity returning. "You're like a real coder now," he said, and Sarah laughed, the sound light in the heavy air of their home. "Getting there," she said, ruffling his hair. He didn't pull away, a small victory that meant more than the gig. That night, as Ethan slept, Sarah sat on the couch, the bungalow creaking around her. The foreclosure deadline loomed, but the freelance money gave her breathing room, a chance to keep fighting. She opened ConnectSphere, tweaking the dashboard, imagining a day when it could be real, helping parents like her stay connected to their kids. Therapy was helping, too. Ethan was opening up, his drawings less stormy, his silences shorter. They weren't out of the woods, but they were together, and that was enough for now. Outside, Chicago's autumn wind rattled the windows, carrying the distant hum of the city. Sarah thought of Mia, who'd be over tomorrow with pizza, and Priya, whose friendship had grounded her in Silicon Valley. She thought of her mom, who'd fought for her and Emily against all odds. The 1-hour rule had given her more than coding skills, it had given her hope, a belief that small, steady steps could rebuild a life. As she closed her laptop, Ethan's sketchbook lay open on the coffee table, a new drawing of a house under a blue sky, 2 figures standing together. Sarah smiled, her heart full. 1 hour at a time, they were finding their way back to each other. Sarah Mitchell stood in the cramped kitchen of her Chicago bungalow, the October wind rattling the windows as she stirred a pot of chili. The smell of cumin and tomatoes filled the air, a small comfort against the chill seeping through the walls. The foreclosure notice, now dog-eared from handling, sat on the counter, its deadline looming, 18 days left before the bank took their home. Ethan was in his room, his music a faint hum, his therapy sessions with Dr. Carter helping him open up after months of silence. Sarah's freelance coding gig, a non-profit website, had eased some financial strain, and her 1-hour rule, dedicating 1 hour daily to learning, inspired by Elon Musk, continued to fuel her work on ConnectSphere, the app she'd built to help parents track kids' school progress. But the weight of their situation still pressed down, and Sarah felt like she was holding her breath, waiting for a break that might never come. The doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected, cutting through the quiet. Sarah wiped her hands on her apron, frowning. Mia wasn't due until tomorrow, and no one else ever visited. She opened the door to find Emily, her younger sister, standing on the porch, her sleek black suitcase glinting under the dim streetlight. Emily's tailored coat and polished boots screamed San Francisco, her blonde hair pulled into a neat ponytail, a far cry from the Michigan trailer park girls they'd once been. "Sarah," Emily said, her smile hesitant but genuine. "Surprise." Sarah's heart lurched, a mix of shock and old resentment tightening her chest. Emily hadn't been back to Chicago in years, not since their mom's funeral, and their last call had ended in a shouting match. "What are you doing here?" Sarah asked, her voice sharper than she meant. Emily's smile faltered, but she stepped inside, the cold air trailing her. "I'm in town for a conference," she said, setting her bag down. "Thought I'd see you and Ethan. It's been too long." Sarah crossed her arms, the warmth of the chili fading. Too long didn't cover it. Emily had left for California at 18, chasing tech dreams, leaving Sarah to care for their mom alone. Their fights had been bitter, Emily accusing Sarah of holding grudges, Sarah accusing Emily of abandoning them. Now, with her life crumbling, Sarah wasn't sure she had the energy to reopen old wounds. But Ethan's therapy had taught her to face hard things, so she nodded stiffly. "Dinner's almost ready. You hungry?" The dining room table, scarred from years of use, felt too small for the tension between them. Ethan joined them, his eyes curious but guarded, sensing the undercurrent. "Aunt Emily," he said, his voice soft. Emily's face lit up, and she hugged him, her warmth easing his shyness. "You're so big, Ethan," she said, pulling a comic book from her bag, Spider-Man, his favorite. Sarah watched, her heart softening despite herself. Emily had always been good with Ethan, even from afar. They ate in near silence, the chili steaming, the Cubs game on the radio filling the gaps. Sarah stole glances at Emily, noting the fatigue in her eyes, the weight of a life she didn't know. After Ethan went to bed, Sarah poured coffee, the mugs chipped but warm in their hands. The kitchen light flickered, a reminder of the bungalow's decay. "So, why now?" Sarah asked, her voice low. "You didn't call, didn't warn me. What's going on?" Emily sighed, her fingers tracing the mug's rim. "I heard about the foreclosure," she said. "From Mia. She reached out on LinkedIn. I didn't know things were so bad, Sarah. I should have been here." The admission caught Sarah off guard, her anger stumbling. "You could have been," she said, her voice tight. "You left, Emily. Mom needed you. I needed you. And now you show up when I'm about to lose everything." Emily's eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "I was 18, Sarah. Scared, selfish. I thought I had to get out to make something of myself. But I never stopped thinking about you and Ethan." Her voice broke, raw with regret. "I'm a tech recruiter now, in San Francisco. I work with startups, people building apps like yours. Mia told me about ConnectSphere. It's good, Sarah. Really good." Sarah blinked, stunned. She hadn't expected Emily to know about her coding, let alone her app. "You looked it up?" she asked, her guard lowering. Emily nodded, pulling out her phone to show a screenshot of ConnectSphere's prototype, the blue dashboard Sarah had shared online. "I showed it to a startup I know in Silicon Valley," Emily said. "They're interested. I can get you a pitch meeting." The offer was a lifeline, unexpected and overwhelming. A startup interested in ConnectSphere? Sarah's mind raced, picturing a pitch, a job, a way to save their home. But resentment lingered, a knot she couldn't untie. "Why help now?" she asked, her voice sharp. "To make up for leaving?" Emily flinched but held her gaze. "Maybe," she said. "But mostly because I believe in you. You've done something incredible, learning to code, fighting for Ethan. I want to be part of that, even if it's late." The sincerity in her voice cracked Sarah's defenses, memories flooding back, of Michigan summers, giggling under the trailer's leaky roof, promising to stick together. They'd lost that, but maybe they could find it again. They talked late into the night, the kitchen growing colder, the coffee long gone. Sarah shared her journey, the boot camp, Ethan's struggles, the 1-hour rule that had kept her going. Emily listened, her polished exterior softening, and shared her own story, years of grinding in tech, the loneliness of a big life far from home. "I missed you," Emily said, her voice barely audible. Sarah's throat tightened, tears threatening. "I missed you too," she admitted, the words a release. They weren't healed, not fully, but the rift was closing, a bridge built on shared pain and hope. The next morning, Emily stayed for breakfast. Ethan chattered about his sketches, showing Emily a new one, a superhero flying over a city under a blue sky. Sarah smiled, seeing her sister through his eyes, a piece of their past alive again. Before Emily left for her conference, she hugged Sarah tight. "I'll set up the pitch," she said. "You and ConnectSphere, you're ready for this is." Sarah nodded, her heart steady. "Thank you," she said, meaning it. As Emily's car pulled away, Sarah felt a shift, hope, not just for Ethan, but for their family, fractured but mending. Alone in the bungalow, Sarah opened her laptop, pulling up ConnectSphere. She tweaked a notification feature, the blue glow a reminder of Ethan, of her mom's resilience, and now Emily's unexpected return. She messaged Priya, "My sister's back. She's connecting me with a startup for ConnectSphere." "Crazy, right?" Priya's reply was instant, "Not crazy. Amazing. You've got this." Sarah smiled, then messaged Tech Tom. "Reconnected with my sister. She's helping me pitch the app. Feeling hopeful." His reply warmed her, "That's family, Sarah. You're building more than an app, you're building a future." The Chicago wind howled outside, but the bungalow felt warmer now, Ethan's sketches on the fridge a promise of brighter days. Sarah's mom's voice echoed, "We don't quit, Sarah." She wouldn't quit, not on Ethan, not on ConnectSphere, not on Emily. The foreclosure loomed large, but Emily's offer was a chance, a spark in the darkness. 1 hour at a time, Sarah was finding her way, and now, she had an ally she hadn't expected. Sarah Mitchell stood in a cramped hotel room in Palo Alto, the hum of Silicon Valley's morning traffic filtering through the thin walls. It was early November, and the budget hotel's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows on the worn carpet. Her laptop sat open on the desk, the ConnectSphere app's blue dashboard glowing. A tool to help parents track their kids' school progress, born from her struggles with Ethan and fueled by her 1-hour rule, inspired by Elon Musk. Today, she'd pitch it to Nexus Labs, a startup Emily, her newly reconciled sister, had connected her with. The stakes were dizzying. A successful pitch could mean a job, a chance to save their Chicago bungalow from foreclosure, now just 15 days away. But as Sarah rehearsed her slides, her hands trembling, doubt gnawed at her. She was a single mom from Chicago, not a tech prodigy. Could she really pull this off? The past month had been a whirlwind, Ethan's therapy sessions rebuilding their trust, her freelance coding gig easing financial strain, Emily's unexpected visit mending old wounds. Emily's offer to arrange this pitch had been a lifeline, but standing here, Sarah felt the weight of every choice that had led to this moment. She adjusted her blazer, borrowed from Mia, its fit slightly off but professional enough. Her reflection in the mirror showed tired eyes but a determined set to her jaw. She thought of Ethan, his shy smile when she'd shown him the app, his sketch of a house under a blue sky. This was for him, for their future. Her mom's voice echoed, "We don't quit, Sarah." She messaged Priya, her bootcamp partner, pitching today. Freaking out. Priya's reply was instant, "You've got this, Sarah. Tell your story. They'll see your heart." Sarah smiled, then messaged Tech Tom on the Code Academy forum, "Big pitch in a few hours. Wish me luck." His response warmed her. "Luck's got nothing on you, Sarah. Show them what ConnectSphere can do. You're ready." Their encouragement was a tether, grounding her as she ran through her slides one last time. The pitch was simple: demo the app, share her journey, explain why ConnectSphere mattered. But the personal story, her struggles as a single mom, Ethan's runaway scare, felt raw, exposing her in a way coding never had. The Nexus Labs office was a sleek glass building, its lobby buzzing with young coders in hoodies and baristas serving cold brew. Sarah clutched her laptop bag, her sneakers silent on the polished floor. Emily had emailed the details, a 10-minute pitch to a small team, followed by questions. Sarah's stomach churned as she rode the elevator, the mirrored walls reflecting her nervous expression. She thought of her Chicago bungalow, its chipped paint and Ethan's sketches, so far from this world of glass and ambition. But ConnectSphere was her bridge between them, and she'd fight for it. The conference room was bright, with a long table and a view of palm trees swaying outside. 3 Nexus Labs team members greeted her: Clara, the CEO, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s, Raj, the lead developer, with a friendly nod, and Lena, the product manager, scribbling notes. Sarah set up her laptop, her hands steadying as she connected to the projector. "Thanks for having me," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. Clara smiled. "We're excited to see ConnectSphere." Emily spoke highly of you. Let's dive in. Sarah started with the demo, clicking through ConnectSphere's blue dashboard. Notifications popped up: mock grades, attendance alerts, teacher notes, clean and user-friendly. This is for parents who want to stay connected to their kids' school lives, she explained, her voice gaining confidence. It's simple, real-time, and built to bridge the gap between busy parents and their kids' education. Raj nodded, typing on his laptop, and Sarah felt a spark of hope. The app worked flawlessly, a far cry from the buggy prototype she'd built with Priya at the bootcamp. Then came the hard part, her story. She took a deep breath, her heart racing. I'm a single mom from Chicago, she began. A year ago, I was a graphic designer facing layoffs, foreclosure, and a son struggling at school. Ethan, my 10-year-old, felt like a burden because of our financial stress. He ran away from home while I was at a coding bootcamp, trying to build a future for us. Her voice wavered, but she pressed on, the room silent. I learned to code using the 1-hour rule, 1 hour a day, no excuses. ConnectSphere came from that, from wanting to help parents like me stay close to their kids, even when life feels impossible. This app is for Ethan, for every parent fighting to be there. The words poured out, raw and unpolished, but real. Clara's eyes softened, Lena stopped writing, and Raj leaned forward. Sarah finished with a call to action: Nexus Labs can make ConnectSphere real, helping families stay connected. I'm here to make that happen. She clicked to her final slide, a photo of her and Ethan at Lake Michigan, his grin bright against the waves. The room was quiet, the air charged. Clara spoke first. That's powerful, Sarah. Can you tell us about the technical stack? Sarah exhaled, grateful for the shift to code. She explained the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript front-end, the mock database Priya had helped build, her voice steady now, rooted in the skills she'd earned. Questions followed, about scalability, user testing, monetization. Sarah answered as best she could, drawing on bootcamp lessons and her freelance work. Raj asked about her learning curve, and she was honest: I'm new to coding, but I'm relentless. I've learned this much in months, and I'll keep going. Lena smiled at that, jotting a note. Clara wrapped up with a nod. We're impressed, Sarah. We'll be in touch soon. Sarah thanked them, her legs shaky as she packed up, the adrenaline draining away. She'd done it, pitched her heart out, flaws and all. Outside, the Silicon Valley sun was high, the air warm against her skin. Sarah walked to a nearby coffee shop, the buzz of tech talk around her a reminder of how far she'd come. She called Ethan, who was at Mia's, his voice brighter than it had been in weeks. How'd it go, Mom? He asked. Sarah smiled, tears pricking her eyes. I told them about you, about us. I think they liked it. Ethan laughed, a sound that warmed her. You're kinda cool, you know that. Sarah laughed too, the weight lifting, if only for a moment. She messaged Priya, pitch went well, I think. Told my story, showed the app. Waiting now. Priya replied, you nailed it, I know it. So proud. TechTom's message followed, bet you blew them away, Sarah. ConnectSphere is special because you are. Sarah sipped her coffee, the cafe's chatter fading. The pitch had been terrifying, empowering, a moment where she'd claimed her place in a world that once felt out of reach. Chicago waited, Ethan, the bungalow, the foreclosure. But for now, she'd fought for their future, and that was enough. Back at the hotel, Sarah opened ConnectSphere, tweaking a notifications timing, the blue glow a reminder of Ethan's smile. Her mom's voice echoed, we don't quit, Sarah. She wouldn't quit, not with Ethan's trust growing, Emily's support, and a pitch that had felt like a victory. The wait for Nexus Labs' response loomed, but Sarah felt a new strength, forged in code and courage. 1 hour at a time, she was building more than an app, she was building a life. Sarah Mitchell sat on the sagging couch in her Chicago bungalow, the November chill seeping through the cracked windows. The foreclosure notice, now creased and worn, sat on the coffee table, its deadline a stark reminder, 12 days until the bank claimed their home. Ethan's sketches, bright with blue skies since their therapy sessions began, were taped to the fridge, a fragile sign of hope. Sarah's laptop glowed with an email from Nexus Labs, the Silicon Valley startup she'd pitched ConnectSphere to 3 days ago. Her heart pounded as she opened it, the words blurring. "We're thrilled to offer you a position as a junior developer, full-time, relocate to Palo Alto, work on ConnectSphere." A job. A real job, with a salary that could save them, a chance to turn her app into reality. Her 1-hour rule, inspired by Elon Musk, had led her here, 1 hour a day, learning to code, fighting for a future. But as joy surged, so did fear. A move to California meant uprooting Ethan, and she wasn't sure he could handle it. She reread the email, her hands trembling. The offer was generous, a starting salary, health benefits, a signing bonus to cover relocation. Nexus Labs saw ConnectSphere as a potential game-changer for parental engagement in schools, and they wanted Sarah to help build it. She thought of her pitch, the blue dashboard, her story of single motherhood, Ethan's runaway scare. Clara, the CEO, had called her relentless, a word that felt like a badge now. But Chicago was home, Ethan's school, Mia's pizza nights, the bungalow's creaky familiarity. Leaving meant tearing Ethan from everything he knew, just as he was finding stability through therapy with Dr. Carter. Sarah's chest tightened, hope clashing with dread. This was the break she'd prayed for, but at what cost? Ethan shuffled into the living room, his hoodie loose, his sketchbook tucked under his arm. "You look weird," he said, flopping onto the couch. Sarah managed a smile, her voice unsteady. "I got an email from the startup. They offered me a job in California, working on ConnectSphere. It's a big deal, Ethan." His face lit up, a spark of pride. "That's awesome, Mom." But then his smile faded, his eyes clouding. "Wait, California? Like, we'd move there?" Sarah nodded, watching him closely. "Yeah, buddy. It's a chance to start fresh, keep our app going. But it's far." Ethan's jaw tightened, his fingers gripping the sketchbook. "I don't want to leave. My school, my friends, Mia, what about our house?" His voice cracked, fear spilling out, and Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her. The tension was palpable, a storm brewing in their small living room. Ethan's fear was a mirror of her own, uprooting their life was a gamble, especially after his struggles with school fights and feeling like a burden. Therapy had helped, but moving could unravel that progress. Sarah thought of their Chicago life, the L trains rattling past, Lake Michigan's waves, the diner where Mia brought donuts. California was a dream. Palm trees, tech campuses, a fresh start, but it was also a leap into the unknown. She reached for Ethan's hand, her voice soft. "I know it's scary. I'm scared too. But this job could mean a home, a future where we're not always fighting to survive." Ethan pulled away, his eyes on the floor. "I like it here," he muttered, retreating to his room, the door clicking shut. Sarah's heart sank, the joy of the offer buried under Ethan's resistance. She messaged Priya, "Got a job offer from Nexus Labs. Full-time, in California." Ethan's freaking out about moving. Priya's reply was quick, "That's huge, Sarah." Ethan's scared, "But you'll help him through it. You always do." She messaged Tech Tom next, "Job offer came through, but Ethan doesn't want to leave Chicago. Don't know what to do." Tech Tom responded, "Big moment, Sarah. Talk to him, show him the possibilities. Kids are resilient, especially with a mom like you." Their words were a lifeline, but the decision felt like hers alone, and it was tearing her apart. That evening, Sarah knocked on Ethan's door, finding him sketching, a cityscape with dark clouds, a hint of his old storms. "Can we talk?" she asked, sitting on his bed. He nodded, his pencil still moving. Sarah took a deep breath, drawing on their therapy lessons. "I know moving feels like losing everything," she said. "I felt that way when I left Michigan for Chicago, scared I'd fail you. But every step, learning to code, building ConnectSphere, was me fighting for us. This job, it's a chance to keep that fight going, to build something amazing together." Ethan looked up, his eyes searching. "What if I hate it there? What if I mess up again?" Sarah's throat tightened, his vulnerability echoing her own doubts. "You won't mess up," she said. "You're strong, Ethan. Look at how far you've come, your sketches, therapy, standing up to those kids at school. We'll face California together, and if it's hard, we'll figure it out, like we always do." She pulled out her phone, showing him photos of Palo Alto, sunny streets, a school with a mural-covered playground, an apartment listing with a view of hills. "It's not Chicago," she said, "but it's a place we can make ours." Ethan's face softened, a flicker of curiosity breaking through. "Will ConnectSphere be, like, a real thing?" he asked. Sarah nodded, smiling. "With this job, yeah. And you'll be part of it." The next day, they met with Dr. Carter, the therapy office warm with its lavender scent. Ethan voiced his fears, losing friends, starting over, but Sarah's steady presence, her story of resilience, seemed to ground him. "You've both grown so much," Dr. Carter said. "Change is scary, but you're a team." Ethan nodded, his hand brushing Sarah's, a silent agreement. Back home, he sketched a new drawing, a house under a sunny sky, two figures holding hands, a blue app icon in the corner. "Okay," he said quietly. "Let's try California." Sarah hugged him, tears spilling, her heart full of equal parts joy and uncertainty. They were leaping together, inspired by each other's courage. Sarah emailed Nexus Labs, accepting the offer, her fingers steady. She called Emily, who whooped with excitement. "I knew you'd kill it." Emily said. "I'll help you settle in." Mia, over pizza that night, teared up but promised to visit. The bungalow was a mess of moving boxes, each one a step toward letting go. Sarah opened ConnectSphere, tweaking a feature, the blue glow a constant in the chaos. Her mom's voice echoed, "We don't quit, Sarah." She wouldn't quit, not on Ethan, not on their dream. California loomed, a horizon of possibility and challenge, but they'd face it as a team, 1 hour at a time. Sarah Mitchell stood in the small kitchen of their Palo Alto apartment, the January sun streaming through a window framed by palm trees. The air smelled of fresh paint and coffee, a far cry from the musty chill of their Chicago bungalow, now a memory after the bank's foreclosure. Boxes cluttered the living room, some still unpacked, but Ethan's sketches, bright with blue skies and superheroes, were already pinned to the fridge, a sign of home taking root. Sarah's job at Nexus Labs, where she worked as a junior developer on ConnectSphere, had brought them here, a leap made possible by her 1-hour rule, 1 hour a day, learning to code, inspired by Elon Musk. But as she sipped her coffee, watching Ethan pack his backpack for his first day at a new school, Sarah felt a mix of hope and nerves. California was their fresh start, but new beginnings came with challenges, and she prayed Ethan was ready. The apartment was modest, a one-bedroom with a pull-out couch for Ethan, a balcony overlooking a quiet street, but it was theirs, paid for with Sarah's signing bonus and first paycheck. Nexus Labs was a dream, a sleek office with glass walls, free snacks, and a team that valued her app's potential to connect parents with their kids' education. Sarah spent her days coding, refining ConnectSphere's dashboard, its blue theme a nod to Ethan's favorite color. Her nights were for the 1-hour rule, now a habit she shared with Ethan, teaching him its power for his own goals, sketching, schoolwork, maybe even coding someday. Their Chicago life, Mia's pizza nights, the L trains, Lake Michigan's waves, felt distant, but therapy with Dr. Carter had given them tools to face this change together. Ethan shuffled into the kitchen, his new sneakers squeaking on the linoleum, his hoodie swapped for a t-shirt in California's warmth. "Do I have to go?" he asked, his voice low, eyes on his backpack. Sarah's heart tugged. She'd seen his fear of starting over, leaving his Chicago friends and school. "I know it's scary, buddy," she said, kneeling to his level. "But you're tough. Remember how you faced those kids at school. This is just another adventure. I'll be there to pick you up, and we'll get ice cream after." Ethan managed a small smile, his hand brushing the Spider-Man comic Emily had given him, a talisman from their old life. "Okay," he said, and Sarah hugged him, her heart swelling with pride. The school was a short drive away, its playground vibrant with murals and kids chasing each other under eucalyptus trees. Sarah walked Ethan to the gate, where his teacher, Ms. Lopez, greeted them with a warm smile. "Ethan, you'll love our art club," she said, noting his sketchbook. Ethan nodded, hesitant, but followed her inside, glancing back at Sarah with a mix of nerves and resolve. Sarah waved, her throat tight, then drove to Nexus Labs, the Bay Area hills a green blur outside her window. She thought of her mom's voice, "We don't quit, Sarah." This move was their fight, and she'd make it work for Ethan. At Nexus Labs, the office buzzed with coders tapping at keyboards, the smell of fresh coffee mingling with the hum of collaboration. Sarah's desk overlooked a courtyard with a fountain, a far cry from her Chicago kitchen table. Clara, the CEO, stopped by, her eyes bright. "The beta test for ConnectSphere is looking great, Sarah. Parents love the notifications." Sarah flushed with pride, her work now reaching real families. She spent her day debugging a feature, her fingers steady on the keyboard, the blue dashboard glowing with purpose. Her team, Raj, Lena, and others from the pitch, felt like a community, their encouragement echoing Priya's and Tech Tom's from her bootcamp days. But Ethan was never far from her thoughts. She messaged Mia, Ethan's first day at school. "Nervous for him?" Mia replied, "He's got your strength, Sarah. Tell him I'm sending Chicago-style pizza vibes." Sarah smiled, missing Mia's warmth but grateful for their calls. Emily, now a regular in their lives, had promised to visit next week, her tech recruiter connections already opening doors for ConnectSphere's growth. Sarah's 1-hour rule continued, now a shared ritual with Ethan. Last night, she'd shown him how to style a simple web page, his eyes wide as the text turned blue. "Can I make one for my sketches?" he'd asked, and Sarah's heart soared. The rule wasn't just for her anymore, it was their way of growing together. After work, Sarah picked Ethan up, finding him at the playground, sketching with a boy named Leo. "School was okay," he said, his voice lighter. "Leo likes comics too. But I miss my old friends." Sarah nodded, squeezing his hand. "It's okay to miss them. We'll call them, and you'll make new friends here. You're doing great." They got ice cream, mint chip, his favorite, at a shop with checkered floors, the California sun warm on their faces. Ethan's chatter about art club eased Sarah's worry, a sign he was finding his place. That evening, in their apartment, Sarah and Ethan sat on the balcony, the sky pink with sunset. She opened her laptop, tweaking ConnectSphere's notification system, while Ethan sketched, a superhero soaring over palm trees, a nod to their new home. "Want to try the 1-hour rule?" Sarah asked. Ethan grinned, grabbing his sketchbook. 1 hour, just drawing." Sarah nodded. "Whatever you want to learn or make better. It's about small steps." They worked side by side, the balcony's breeze carrying the scent of jasmine. Ethan's pencil flew, his focus intense, and Sarah felt a quiet joy. This was their new beginning, built on trust and persistence. Later, Sarah messaged Priya, settling in. "Ethan's adjusting, and ConnectSphere is growing. Teaching him the 1-hour rule." Priya replied, "Love that. You're both unstoppable." Tech Tom's message followed, "New life sounds good, Sarah. Ethan's lucky to have you." Sarah smiled, thinking of her Chicago bungalow, now someone else's, and the life they'd left behind. The foreclosure had been a loss, but it had pushed them here, to a place of possibility. Her mom's resilience, Mia's support, Emily's reconciliation, Priya's friendship, all had carried her forward. ConnectSphere was more than an app, it was proof that small, steady hours could rebuild a life. As Ethan slept, his sketchbook open to his superhero, Sarah stood on the balcony, the Bay Area lights twinkling below. California wasn't Chicago, but it was home now, a place where Ethan could grow and she could thrive. The 1-hour rule had given her more than code, it had given her courage, a way to teach Ethan that they could face anything, 1 hour at a time. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, Sarah felt ready, her heart full of love and possibility. Sarah Mitchell sat in the bright studio of Tech for Good, a popular podcast hosted in San Francisco, the hum of anticipation buzzing in her ears. It was late March 2025, and the studio's sleek design, glass walls, vibrant lights, a live audience of tech enthusiasts, felt like a dream compared to her Chicago bungalow's chipped paint and leaky roof. Her ConnectSphere app, now a growing product at Nexus Labs, had brought her here, a testament to her 1-hour rule, 1 hour a day, learning to code, inspired by Elon Musk. Ethan, now 11, sat in the front row, his sketchbook open, his grin a beacon of pride. Sarah adjusted her microphone, her heart racing. Sharing her story, from foreclosure to Silicon Valley, was daunting, but it was for Ethan, for every struggling parent, for the community that had carried her forward. The host, Jamie Torres, a charismatic tech journalist, leaned forward, her voice warm. Sarah, your journey's inspiring thousands. Tell us how it started. Sarah took a deep breath, the studio lights hot on her face. I was a single mom in Chicago, facing layoffs and foreclosure, she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. My son, Ethan, was struggling, and I felt like I was failing him. Then I found the 1-hour rule, dedicating 1 hour a day to learning something new. I chose coding, inspired by Elon Musk's approach to relentless learning. That hour led me to build ConnectSphere, an app to help parents stay connected to their kids' school lives. The audience murmured, Ethan's eyes shining, and Sarah felt a surge of purpose. She shared it all, the boot camp in Silicon Valley, Ethan's runaway scare, her sister Emily's reconciliation, the Nexus Labs pitch that landed her a job. It wasn't just about code, she said, her voice thick with emotion. It was about showing Ethan we could rise above our struggles, that small, steady steps could change everything. Jamie nodded, her eyes soft. You've turned pain into purpose. ConnectSphere's beta has thousands of users. How does that feel? Sarah smiled, thinking of the parents using her app, the blue dashboard she'd built with Priya. It's humbling, she said. Every notification, every parent who feels closer to their kid, it's for Ethan, for my mom's memory, for everyone who believed in me. The podcast was a whirlwind, questions flying from Jamie and the audience. Sarah spoke of Priya's friendship, Mia's support, and Tech Tom, the Code Academy forum mentor who'd cheered her on. I've never met Tom, she admitted, but his messages kept me going. Jamie grinned, a glint in her eye. We have a surprise for you, Sarah. The studio doors opened, and a man in his 60s, silver-haired and wiry, walked in, his smile familiar from his forum profile. Tom. Sarah gasped, tears pricking her eyes. Tom Reynolds, a retired engineer, hugged her, his voice gruff. Couldn't miss your big day, Sarah. You're proof the 1-hour rule works. The audience clapped, Ethan beaming, and Sarah's heart swelled. Tom wasn't just a username, he was real, a piece of her journey made flesh. The surprises weren't over. Jamie leaned in, her voice electric. Sarah, we got word this morning that Elon Musk himself has taken notice of ConnectSphere. His team reached out, saying it aligns with his vision for educational innovation. They're interested in exploring a partnership. The audience gasped, and Sarah froze, her mind reeling. Elon Musk, the man whose philosophy had sparked her journey, knew her app existed? Ethan's jaw dropped, his sketchbook forgotten, and Tom chuckled, clapping her shoulder. I don't know what to say, Sarah stammered, tears spilling. Jamie laughed. You don't have to say anything yet. Just know your work's making waves. The podcast wrapped with a guest, Dr. Rachel Kim, a psychologist specializing in habit formation. Sarah's story shows the power of small, consistent actions, Dr. Kim said. The 1-hour rule taps into habit science. Daily practice builds neural pathways, fostering resilience and growth. Sarah's persistence, despite setbacks, is a masterclass in how habits can transform lives. Sarah nodded, her mind still spinning from the Musk revelation. Dr. Kim's words grounded her, validating the hours she'd poured into coding, into Ethan, into herself. The audience erupted in applause, and Sarah hugged Ethan, his warmth anchoring her in the surreal moment. That evening, at the ConnectSphere launch event in a Silicon Valley ballroom, Sarah stood among tech leaders, Nexus Labs colleagues, and friends. The room sparkled with string lights, servers weaving through with trays of sparkling water. Priya was there, her hijab vibrant, her daughter Aisha sketching with Ethan in a corner. Emily, polished in a blazer, raised a glass, her pride evident. Mia had flown in from Chicago, her hug fierce. You did it, girl, she whispered. Sarah smiled, thinking of their Chicago nights, now a warm memory. The app's official release was a milestone. Schools across California were adopting it, with national interest growing. But the Musk news, still fresh, buzzed in her mind, a twist she hadn't seen coming. Tom approached, his eyes crinkling. Never thought I'd see a student outshine me, he teased. Sarah laughed, thanking him for his early encouragement. You gave me hope when I had none, she said. Tom shrugged, humble. You did the work, Sarah. That's what counts. Clara, Nexus Labs CEO, took the stage, praising Sarah's vision. ConnectSphere is just the beginning, she said, and Sarah felt a quiet pride, her journey from foreclosure to this moment a testament to persistence. Later, in their Palo Alto apartment, Sarah and Ethan sat on the balcony, the Bay Area lights twinkling below. The palm trees swayed, a soft breeze carrying the scent of eucalyptus. Ethan's sketchbook was open to a new drawing, a superhero holding a blue app icon, soaring over a city. You think Musk will really help with ConnectSphere? He asked, his voice awed. Sarah smiled, ruffling his hair. Maybe. But even if he doesn't, we've got this. You, me, our app, it's enough. Ethan nodded, leaning against her, and Sarah's heart was full. She opened her laptop, checking the Code Academy forum one last time. Messages poured in from users inspired by her podcast, parents and coders starting their own 1-hour rule journeys. She posted, "Thank you, everyone. This started with 1 hour a day, for Ethan, for hope. Keep going, wherever you are." Priya texted, "You're a rock star, Sarah. Aisha wants to code now." Mia sent a pizza emoji, Emily a heart. Sarah closed the laptop, the blue glow of ConnectSphere fading. Her mom's voice echoed, "We don't quit, Sarah." She hadn't quit, not through loss, fear, or doubt. Life was full of surprises, but persistence and love had lit the way, and with Ethan by her side, she was ready for whatever came next. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?